Is it possible that the genetic makeup of today's Greek population holds a hidden truth, one that fundamentally changes our perception of Europe? Are you aware that a significant 3/4 of Greek heritage may originate from territories established long before the height of the classical European era? If this data proves accurate, how should we then view the description of Greece as the original source of Western culture? We must examine the scientific findings, not the popular myths, to uncover the true lineage of the Greeks. For generations, educational texts have presented the narrative of Greece as the bedrock upon which Europe's governance, intellectual thought, structural design, and artistic expression were built. However, genetics presents a more profound history, predating famous figures like Plato and Pericles, and even the coinage of the term Europe. Contemporary DNA studies, utilizing skeletal remains excavated throughout the Aegean Sea and Mediterranean basin, indicate that the Hellenic people sprang from the intermingling of three major ancestral streams. The first source originated with early agriculturalists from the Neolithic period, who journeyed from Anatolia, a region now known as Turkey, approximately 9 millennia in the past. The second consisted of the initial hunter-gatherer groups inhabiting the European continent. The final component arrived later, during the Bronze Age, as enigmatic groups from the Pontic-Caspian steppe migrated throughout Eurasia. This fusion gave rise to a unique populace in the Aegean, partly derived from Europe, partly from the Near East, partly from the steppe, yet wholly Greek. Geneticists analyzed the DNA extracted from the skeletal remains of the Mycenaeans and Minoans, two of the most ancient documented Greek societies. Their findings revealed that these two populations held approximately 75% of their genetic heritage in common with the early farming communities of Anatolia and the eastern Mediterranean area. The remaining quarter originated with the herding communities of the northern steppe. Thus, the ancestors of the Greeks possessed both Occidental and Oriental genetic markers, a trait still evident in their modern-day progeny. Before proceeding, understand that this is the caliber of revelation we explore daily on Genealogy X, a channel dedicated to the intersection of human history and genetics. Be sure to subscribe now. We publish 2 new genetic puzzles every day, showcasing how our shared ancestry formed the world as we perceive it. This notion of Greeks being somehow distinct from Europeans stems directly from that significant Anatolian link, specifically, the 75% portion that is traced to populations residing in regions currently considered geographically outside of Europe. However, the full picture is far more intricate. Those very same initial Anatolian agriculturalists were the carriers who disseminated farming practices across the entirety of southern Europe. They also contributed significantly to the gene pool of the Italians, the Spanish, and the southern Slavs. Consequently, although a fraction of Greek heritage arose in Asia Minor, this genetic line ultimately established the very foundation of European identity. Stated differently, the genetic traits that distinguish the Greeks are simultaneously the components that facilitated the emergence of Europe. The query remains, if the predominant portion of Greek DNA originated in ancient Anatolia, what became of the previous European inhabitants? Ancient discoveries from caverns in Thessaly and the Peloponnese confirm that hunter-gatherer communities inhabited the area well before the arrival of the Neolithic farming groups. Their genetic code was unique. They were people with darker complexions and blue eyes, who sustained themselves by hunting and fishing along the Mediterranean shorelines. Upon the arrival of the Anatolian farmers, there was no displacement. Instead, a process of integration occurred. This specific amalgamation formed the fundamental basis of Hellenic identity. Therefore, when you observe a contemporary Greek person, you are witnessing a living combination of Europe's first agricultural settlers, its primordial foraging populations, and the nomadic horse riders from the northern plains. Yet, the discoveries continue to astonish. When scientists contrasted Greek genetic material with samples from ancient civilizations like the Egyptians, Phoenicians, and Persians, they detected shared genetic signs. This was not the result of military conquest, but rather a reflection of the Aegean region serving as a vital nexus for commerce and human movement over millennia. Major coastal centers such as Crete, Rhodes, and Corinth functioned as major genetic routes, linking 3 different continents. Resources traveled, concepts were exchanged, and genes flowed alongside them. Consequently, the contemporary Greek genetic profile includes indicators of Levantine, Anatolian, and even subtle North African heritage. These represent the faint imprints of maritime travelers, merchants, and displaced persons whose narratives were never formally recorded in historical accounts. Should this broad lineage make the Greeks seem less European, or rather, more globally representative? When one's bloodline spans 3 continents, perhaps that individual is not an anomaly within Europe. Perhaps they are its original model. A significant 2017 research paper, spearheaded by genetic experts at Harvard, analyzed 15 Bronze Age genomes recovered from the Aegean. Their final assessment was that present-day Greeks are the lineal successors of the Mycenaeans, exhibiting only minor alterations to their genetic structure over approximately 3,500 years. Simply put, the populace responsible for crafting Homer's legendary poems and constructing the Parthenon maintains an undeniable genetic link with the inhabitants currently residing in cities like Athens and Crete. Very few other countries can boast such a degree of continuous lineage. An additional discovery surprised historical scholars. In contrast to Northern Europeans, who incorporated substantial amounts of steppe DNA through the Indo-European movements, Greece assimilated a smaller proportion. This explains why approximately just 1/4 of Greek DNA originates from steppe pastoralists, in comparison to up to 50% in the Northern European region. This reduced impact allowed for the preservation of a greater amount of the ancient Eastern Mediterranean genetic characteristic. Therefore, when assertions are made that Greeks are not European, the factual counterpoint is that they represent an older European form, the genetic iteration of the continent that existed prior to the extensive northern migrations that fundamentally changed its composition. Let's examine their language. Greek is a member of the Indo-European linguistic group. Nonetheless, it stands as one of its most ancient and separate subdivisions. Linguistic experts hypothesize that the Indo-European component was introduced into Greece by the very same steppe immigrants who account for that final 25% of genetic contribution. Consequently, the pattern observed in genetics is mirrored in language, a profound bedrock originating in the Near East, fused with a more recent infusion from the northern regions. This combination resulted in the literary voice of Homer, the intellectual tradition of Aristotle, and the mathematical insights of Pythagoras, a civilization that sprang from amalgamation, rather than being confined to separation. Naturally, the modern Greek populace has continued to intermix throughout historical periods. The eras of Roman domination, Slavic population shifts, Ottoman control for centuries, and pervasive Mediterranean commerce have each left minor, yet discernible, genetic traces. Despite all these influences, the fundamental genetic composition has stayed astonishingly consistent. Genetic analysis of contemporary Greeks shows a near-perfect grouping with Bronze Age Aegean populations, demonstrating a closer link to their ancient predecessors than is seen in any other European country. Therefore, should anyone pose the question, are modern Greeks genuinely descended from their ancient counterparts? The conclusive reply is affirmative, and this is definitively confirmed by scientific data. Nevertheless, the assertion of 75% non-European heritage provokes ongoing discussion. From a genetic perspective, what truly defines a European? The geographical lines marking continental divisions are human constructs, not biological realities. In the sweep of deep history, Europe and Asia were never distinct entities. The reality was a singular, uninterrupted landmass across which human populations migrated, conducted commerce, intermarried, and evolved. The evidence from ancient DNA demonstrates that ethnic identity has never been represented by one simple shade on a geographical chart. Identity exists as a series of gradations, interconnected spheres, and continuous interchanges. Perhaps the more relevant query is not focused on whether the Greeks qualify as Europeans, but rather if anyone can establish a distinction between us and them that genetics would validate. Would you be interested in learning if your own lineage spans multiple continents? Could such knowledge alter your self-perception or your sense of place in the world? Furthermore, an unexpected revelation awaits. A portion of those same Anatolian farmers, whose genetic legacy is prominent in Greece, also contributed to the genesis of the earliest Near Eastern societies, encompassing areas of ancient Mesopotamia. Therefore, when Western historical accounts state that Greece adopted concepts from the East such as systems of writing, astronomical knowledge, and methods of trade, it signifies more than just a cultural appropriation. It was essentially a genetic memory being reactivated. The interaction between the Eastern and Western worlds was never truly an encounter between unrelated groups. Instead, it represented the reconnection of distant relatives. Archaeological genetics has additionally uncovered subtle, yet measurable, connections between the Greek populace and ancient peoples from Armenia, Georgia, and even Iran. These findings do not reflect recent population movements, but rather profound remnants of human migration that occurred millennia ago across the Anatolian and Caucasus regions. This history portrays a narrative of perpetual movement, successive waves of people molding, blending, and transforming until a specific community on the Aegean shoreline emerged and was recognized as the Greeks. The formula is therefore 75% Anatolian, 25% steppe, plus the indigenous European component. Yet, these percentages are not mere tags, they are a form of historical recall. They illustrate precisely how the earliest European inhabitants were constructed through the integration of multiple global ancestries. Viewed in this light, the Greeks are not non-European. Rather, they serve as tangible evidence that Europe itself was never a place of singular origin, but an ongoing, ceaseless dialogue between the East and the West. If you found enjoyment in this exploration of how genetics refutes historical assumptions, ensure you subscribe to Genealogy X. We reveal 2 new genetic puzzles daily that shed light on our true identity. Therefore, are the Greeks European? Genetically, the answer is partially yes, but they are equally Anatolian, Mediterranean, and universal. The Aegean Sea has consistently functioned as a connection point, never a separation barrier. Within every island, every fragment of stone, and every helix of Greek DNA resides the history of migrations that started before the continent was even named Europe. And perhaps this holds the most significant hidden truth: what we identify as Greek is not the periphery of Europe, but in fact, its inception. Since by analyzing the information encoded in our genetics, we come to the realization that no human culture developed in isolation. The historical account of the Greek people is fundamentally the history of humanity itself, a geography without constraints, a heritage without boundary, and a powerful notification that every individual's blood contains a vast and untapped reservoir of history, ready for re-examination.